Okay, you ready?
Yep.
Okay, let's go. Hey everyone, we're back with another episode at Alpha Male Barbers. My name's Nicolaou, and today I've got a friend with me. I'd say a young, successful, and inspirational man. Harris Kyriacou in the chair with the barber.
How you doing, Ben?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm alright, not too bad.
You turned 30 last week?
Last Tuesday, yeah.
How was it?
It was alright, just like another day.
How do you feel about turning 30?
I think 30 is a good age for me. I'm happy with where I am in life. I'm about to get married this year as well.
Good.
Work's going well. I'm
Yeah.
with someone I'm happy with, so
Good.
I think 30 could be a good year for me.
Do you feel like you're going to miss the 20s? Or is it a phase that you've passed?
I think I see age as experience.
Good.
So I think
Yeah.
my 20s was good. It was experience that I lived, and I just don't look back at anything. I think it's always about looking forward. So
Yeah,
I won't miss it.
Good.
I had good times and good memories in
Yeah,
my 20s, and
good.
now I'm happy to do the 30s.
That's what it's about, man. I'm 30 in July, so that's the
You've got
mentality.
to come, yeah?
That's the mentality I'm going with as well. So I want you to give the viewers and the listeners a little info on you, your day-to-day life, just about the kind of stuff that you do, and how you got into it.
Okay, so basically I work for my parents. They've got a company doing vacuum coatings, and we specialise in a material called indium tin oxide.
Okay.
It's a transparent metal, and we put it onto glass and plastics, but it's highly conductive, so you use it for a lot of things, mainly touch technology. So ITO will be the same thing that you have on your touchscreen phone.
Okay.
And that's pretty much what we do.
Right.
We've got a factory in the UK. We've been doing that since 2002.
Right.
And I think in 2016 we opened a factory in Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
How it came about for me being there was basically I was studying, studied law.
I remember that. Yeah.
Studied law, yeah.
Was it a barrister? Like.
Studied as a barrister, yeah. So I finished that when I was 23, 24.
Right.
Moved to London, working in a law firm.
Okay.
And I hated it. I hated law.
Why?
I don't think I was ever really in love with law. I think it was, at school I was quite a naughty kid.
Okay.
And you'd always get the teachers tell you what you can't do, what you'll never be, and so on. So as a youngster I thought, I'm going to pick the hardest thing I could possibly be to prove them wrong. And I just followed with law.
That's for what we're going to discuss. That's an interesting mentality to have.
Mm-hmm.
So you did it more so to prove a point than
More to prove that I could do.
Was there any appeal and desire to do law apart from that?
I did enjoy it. I mean, when you're young and you watch mainly the American law programs, you think it's this fantastic way of putting your point across and so on.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it for a little bit. I found it wasn't just a job though; it was a lifestyle, and that lifestyle put me off because you found all your friends were in that same sort of environment.
Right.
You only ever spoke about that kind of thing.
Okay.
It was a very pretentious area as well.
Right.
And I didn't enjoy that at all. So I think that, with not enjoying London, caused me to fall out of love with it altogether.
So then you went from that to what you do now?
Pretty much. So I was working, as I say, in London. Fell out of love with that very quickly.
Okay.
I was there for about a year, 18 months.
Yeah.
And I came back and basically didn't really know which direction I was going to take. I enjoyed business, and I never wanted to work for anybody.
That's a problem I had.
Well, yeah. But the problem is as well, you can very quickly go off the tracks when you do that.
Yeah.
So my mum and my stepdad pulled me in and basically took me into their work and made me sit there and try and apply for jobs every day.
How long have they been doing it for?
Since 2002.
Right.
2002.
Okay. So then you only came along.
I started
8 years. Like, would it have been 8 years?
Yeah, probably around. I've been there about 6-ish years now. So, yeah.
Right. So was it a case of, Harris, you don't know what you're doing, you're coming to work for us?
Kind of. So I was there in the conference room just applying for jobs,
Right.
which I was never doing.
Okay.
And it was at the same sort of time as they had the offer to open in America.
Right.
So at the time they were thinking of moving to America, they said to me, look, would you like to get involved?
Okay.
And try and work your way up and learn the business. And
What was it that, was there any appeal, or was it like, wait, when you were first applying for jobs, was it a case of, nah, like law wasn't for you? Did you ever think at the start, this isn't for me either?
In the beginning, it was a very big, steep learning curve, and production and manufacturing is you can't have, unless you've got experience, that is a different kettle of fish altogether. So I was a bit shocked when I first got to doing it, but I enjoyed being in business and, managing people and processes and understanding how things work. So I enjoyed that part of it. I wasn't put off by it.
I think that as a businessman and definitely somebody that manages people, there's tact, and not everybody can do it.
No, 100%.
Obviously, you've got to learn certain skills, but certain things just come to you, and you need to be assertive enough, disciplined enough to be able to do that. But like we were talking before off camera, was being able to manage people, be confident with what you're doing. But one thing I say to people about business, which unless you're in business, you don't know, that it's not just what you see inside the business. It's at home.
100%.
It's the fact that if you've got work to do tomorrow, and tomorrow's a Saturday or tomorrow's a Sunday, you can't go and get fucked up the night before
100%.
because you've got business to deal with the next day.
Yeah, it's the things you can't see.
Yeah.
So, people say to me, what are you doing today? I do what you can't see. Do you know what I mean? Because there's so much that goes on behind the backgrounds that people fail to realise. 4:30 my alarm goes off every day. Yeah. I'm at work till 5:30, 6 o'clock. Yeah. Go gym, come home, my emails are on, working Saturdays, Sundays. It's the things that people don't see that.
Yeah. This is the thing, like there'll be times I'm replying to people's messages about tomorrow's appointments at 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
The hours on my door say I finish at 6. Yeah. I don't finish at 6.
No. I think that's what pushes you to try and do more as well, though, isn't it? You've got to know that there is no framework, there is no 9 to 5 if you want to try and be.
Yeah, but if you want to be a businessman or a businesswoman, you have to have that, because if you're thinking, no, I finish when I finish and I don't want to see it again till the next day, you can't be a businessman.
No, you can't. And I think, like you say, you have to have that drive. So when I was at school, every morning I'd go to Tesco and I'd buy 10 jam donuts, pack of cookies, and I'd sell them on the playground.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I love that.
And even in the summer months, I'd go to the pound shop, buy the Calypsos, put them in the freezer overnight, come in, and that was...
So you had it?
I think I had it, yeah. I mean, it was just what was in me naturally. I always knew how to, not make money, but, do something for myself, push myself on. I always think I had that.
I guess you're always kind of thinking ahead.
Yeah.
Which is what you've got to do, essentially. So... some guests that I have on, it's about them and what they have going on. Others are people I'm just having everyday different type of conversations with. And then some are here, like yourself, to discuss deeper issues that I believe need addressing. So one of the reasons I originally wanted to start the podcast is because I felt like I had certain messages that I wanted to get across to people. I can only reach you, if I didn't have the podcast, I could only reach you if you're in the barbershop, if you're sat in the chair. This way is a platform that I wanted to build to push certain messages that I don't feel are being pushed or pushed enough. I've got a concern that a lot of people... a lot of young people are lost these days, and I want to be able to reach them. I remember speaking to you in the past. We were at a wedding. I don't know if you remember. We were at a wedding some years ago, a friend's wedding. You remember? Yeah. And I was asking you about your business and what you've got going on. And I remember saying to you, what's the bigger picture? Because from my understanding, you and your family's business is successful at a higher level than many, and there's going to be a time when you want to do something different, not to say that you come away from it, but you want other things to do. And I remember you said to me, once you got to a certain level, you wanted to be able to give back. And I respected that a lot, because you don't hear a lot of people say that. A lot of people are very, I'm just trying to mind my business and stack my money. All right, Bill Gates. Do you know what I mean? There's got to be something that drives us to want to push for other people as well. And especially at our ages, I feel like we're at a more interesting age now, because we can relate to these young kids, but we're old enough to understand the bigger things.
Yeah.
Whereas a kid in his early 20s maybe can't reach the younger kids like we can, but people that are older than us can't reach the younger kids for the opposite reason.
Yeah.
Because they can't relate to them.
Yeah.
So, me and you have had very, I'd say, from what I'm aware of, we've had different growing up experiences. Me and my family, fortunately, were very middle class, but also in good, safe areas.
Mm-hmm.
You had a bit of a different kind of upbringing.
Yeah.
Could you tell us what you kind of experienced that you feel has shaped you to how you are now?
Yeah, I mean, my parents split when I was quite young, probably 10, 11 years old.
Okay.
And, you know, I had both my parents there at any time I wanted, but
right.
when you've gone from having a family household and then having two separate households, you can lose your way a little bit in the sense that there's not a constant guidance there all the time. There's a lot of things going on around you, and you don't always focus yourself as well as you can. So obviously we went through a divorce at a young age, and my parents struggled at that time.
Is it because I've never experienced it, but I've heard that it affects people in different ways. Some people say it never really affected them a lot. Other people do get really affected by it.
Mm-hmm.
Is it as bad as it seems, or does it come across as like it's more of an individual thing?
I suppose it depends on the circumstances surrounding it. So I think I probably knew it was best thing for both of them at the time.
Okay.
I found myself very cold to things in general because I think what you always know is now changed, or it's now different.
Cold in what way?
Attachment, I suppose. I became very unemotionally attached to most things, or I was
dismissive.
I didn't give too much consideration. I just move forward with everything.
Right.
You tend to block things out and you just keep tunnel vision and going.
Is that because you don't want anything to kind of hurt you? Was it a defense mechanism?
Probably. Yeah, probably.
Like a
was.
guard.
Yeah, 100%.
And then obviously being in Birmingham, you've had different kind of influences that are there if you wanted them.
Yeah, definitely.
Tell me about that.
Well, you know, when you're like 10, 11, 12 years old, you then all of a sudden become the man of your house. You try to grow into that role, but you're only a boy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You're only a boy, and you become, as I say, the man of the house, and then you start to wander elsewhere, and you just try and get guidance from wherever you can get it from. And naturally, that then becomes people that are a bit older than you, and people don't always have your best interests at heart, so you can be very quickly swayed onto the wrong tracks if you're not, you know.
I read a book. Well, I didn't read it all. I've got this problem where I start books and don't finish them. But this is a book that I definitely want to, at the right time, start and finish. And it was a book called Raising Boys.
Mm-hmm.
It's a book that is like, it's been a bestseller. It's been written in a lot of different languages. And I read the first few chapters. One of the things that really stood out to me was it said from the ages of the child first being born to about 5 years old, usually the boy is more attached to his mother, right? And the dad gets a bit scared, like, is he going to be a mommy's boy? Is he soft? Does he not like me?
Yeah.
And then what happens, they said from about 6 to I think about 12-ish, the boy's more on his dad. And then this is where it gets interesting. Then it says from 12, 14 years old, now a boy needs a role model. A father figure, a male figure in his life that's a bit older than him, that isn't his dad.
Yeah.
It could either be an older brother or a cousin. It could be a family friend. It could be a mate of his that's a few years older and wiser. Because they're looking to them for answers. But these people have to be on the right path themselves.
Yeah.
They said what tends to happen if a boy doesn't get that is he's hanging around with his mates that his age in the same situation he's in.
Yeah.
And then kids get into crime, violence, drugs, that kind of stuff, because they're curious.
Yeah.
And we've all been curious I never acted on a lot of the things I was curious about, but you can I was fortunate enough to have an older brother and people around me that could guide me and keep me away from that. I didn't have those interests. What it says in the book was that there's certain tribes that at about 12 years old, the men from the tribe take the 12-year-old boy and they take him away from his mother and they teach him how to hunt, how to be a man, in what they deem as how to raise their families. And then the boy comes back at 14, 2 years later, hasn't seen his mom, and now he's ready to guide the family. Yeah. So what's interesting about it is the guidance and the male figures there on the right path. So do you feel like you didn't have that?
I don't know if I didn't have it. As I say, my parents were never a million miles away, so I always had my dad. Yeah. I had my papa, my granddad. Yeah. Later on, I had a stepfather. Right. And I had my mum as well. My mum's a very, very strong person. Okay. So I think I got a lot of my strength from her. Right. You know, trying to make herself independent, look after 2 kids, raise a household, and do everything else a mum does, on top of cooking, cleaning, working, and everything else that goes with it. I think I was quite, I don't want to use the word soft when I was younger, but I was probably carefree. I didn't have to worry about anything because I was in a strong unit. And as soon as it was taken away, I became very hardened to things. So despite any role models I may have had around me, I was very fixated on being my own man from a very young age, where I probably should have been a bit more open to...
Was it a case of like, you can't tell me what to do because I know better?
Probably, yeah. Probably was, you can't tell me what to do, I know better.
That's an age thing as well with boys.
I think it's an age thing as well, definitely. And I think that probably came to me sooner than most, because I was excelled into that position. So
now you were forced in it.
I was forced into it, yeah. Right. So you always try and be the, alpha male, head of the household, everything that comes with it, and you take it all on.
Was there any of what was going on in your areas that kind of affected that as well? Was it like any friends or any of the older boys?
I always found myself hanging around with the older boys for some reason, hanging around with the older crowd. So even when I was in primary school, I was hanging around with the older kids. Right. And when you're doing that, everything is brought forward so much quicker. So all the things that you probably wouldn't see until you're later on in life, all of a sudden you're seeing it from a young age. And you're like, oh, it becomes normal then. But then when it becomes normal, it's a bit of a problem, because that's not the norm for
someone your age.
100%.
Were there people trying to pull you in wrong directions?
I don't know if people are trying to pull you in wrong directions for the wrong reasons. I think that's the direction they're going. They probably don't see it as right or wrong.
They don't know better.
They don't know better, but you're probably following their direction. So I don't think it's them deliberately trying to pull you. It's just the circumstance and the...
Right. Where do you feel the problem is now with a lot of these kids being lost?
They've got no leaders, no role models, no one to guide them, no one that truly cares about them. Yeah. And I think importantly, no one they can relate to at all. So when I was going through, finding myself, as I was getting older at school, I was having anger management lessons, I was having mentors, and that's where I started to get guidance later on. But you're getting guidance from people that they're telling you because they're probably trained to tell you a certain way, but can they actually... And they're paid, you know what I mean? Yeah. Who's actually really caring enough to want to push you in the right way?
Yeah. I do feel it's tough, and it goes back to the whole thing with, if you haven't got the people around you to guide you, then you're just going to go off and do what you see everybody else do. Yeah. And I mentioned this in one of the previous episodes about how a lot of what we're into as our generation and the music and everything else is everything about going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
You've got very few people that are leaders, that are successful, that are deemed as cool by the younger kids, that are doing well, that can say, no, we don't do drugs, and no, we're not in gangs, and all this kind of stuff. And my issue is, and the reason why I've got you here today is because there needs to be more of that, but we're not seeing it. We're just seeing the guys that glamorize the money and glamorize, but it's not about that. It's about building yourself up as a man,
Yeah.
building yourself up as a strong individual, and obviously these problems apply to girls as well. Just being strong in yourself, find where you want to be at and head in that direction. Very narrow in the sense of, I want to keep away from the bad stuff. But people aren't pushing it.
No, they're not, because it doesn't, I suppose it depends where the role models are coming from. So if you're talking like rappers and gangs and so, they've got no interest in pushing that positivity, because it doesn't fit that image they're trying to achieve. And people are looking at them to relate, but you're not from that world either, so you can't relate. So you've got middle class kids that are listening to music and taking a bit of guidance from the wrong sources, and they all of a sudden adopt this whole way of life. There's nothing. Not them. It's not them. And they're just rapidly accelerated into that road now. It's crazy.
Do you feel like there is a type of person that isn't in the music industry that can guide these kids, that kids would want to relate to, or do you feel like it's just individuals and we've just got to be able to thread them out?
I think generally growing up you always find a role model. I think it's important to try and find your own way at some point as well. You can't always look for someone to copy, to emulate, to be like. You've got to try and find your own calling somehow, which isn't easy. It's not easy at all. But when I say role models for me now, it's some of the kids that I went to school with that are now like owners of care homes, or they've got their own clubs, barbershops. That to me is a role model. You've stepped outside your comfort zone and you've done something probably uninspired from what you've seen around you and just made your own mark.
Did you expect that from them at a younger age? Like, not to say that you knew they were going to do it, but did it seem like they had it in them from then?
No, probably not. No. And now all of a sudden you see them, it's like chalk and cheese from where they were or the kind of person they were. But something must have happened where they made a positive change, and all of a sudden they've changed who they are as a person.
I think the great thing about that is it just goes to show that no matter where you are in the way you're raised or what kind of stuff you've been led into or whatever it is, what path you're on, what your education is, you can still get there.
100% you can, yeah. At any point. I think the problem a lot of people have in life is they're busy making big plans, but it's passing them by. Sometimes you just got to wake up, stand up and say, right, I'm going to do this shit today. And it's not easy, but you have to just take life by the reins and just run with it.
I think one of the problems for the kids though is that what we do, and we're successful in our own right, but it is a lot of work. It's not something you just wake up and all of a sudden we're successful.
No.
Or we're good at something. Everything that me and you have done has took a lot of years of self-discovery in a sense, discipline to get good at something, focus on getting into something, getting on a path and becoming good at it. There's so much to it, and I think a lot of kids don't have the self-belief that they can do that.
No, I think you're probably right. People don't believe in themselves, and they don't, because you don't believe, you don't push yourself to try and be more. Like you said, nothing comes easy, and the sooner you realise that, the sooner you'll start making headway in what you're trying to achieve. I think a lot of people just think it's going to happen. It doesn't. You've got to be able to do what other people are prepared or aren't prepared to do. You push yourself and do more and try and get that edge on the next man that's tracing.
I feel like it's sad because I'll speak to a lot of guys in the barbershop, men, boys, and they just feel like this is what I do this job and I'm pretty much never going to do much more. So for that reason, I'm going to stay as I am. And what it is, it's a sign of
it's doubt, really.
It's self-doubt, but it's like they don't want to take the risk in failing, so they don't commit at all.
100%. I like taking the risks.
You
know what I mean? Not everyone does. I understand that, but I think in life you have to take calculated risks. You have to be able to put your neck on the block and say, do you know what? I'm going to go for it. What's the worst that's going to happen? Am I going to die? Unless I'm doing something stupid, probably not. You just got to go for it sometimes, but you have to believe.
But so this is the thing. I think that a lot of these young boys are feeling like, I'm not in a position where I'm going to ever be able to own my own business or whatever it might be. So there's no point of trying. So for that reason, they just hang back, and then it's like this weird, dark cycle. And it's like, because I doubt myself, now I've got an insecurity. Now I'm unhappy. Now I need something to make me feel better. So now I'm going to take drugs. And then I'm going to feel worse. And then it's just this vicious cycle.
Nothing, can't you?
But if you owe it to yourself to believe that, you know what, I'm just going to give it a little fucking go. And just push as hard as I can. And if I fail, I fail. But even if you do fail, and you've probably failed at things, I've definitely failed at things, you're still better than you were before you started.
100%, because you've tried it. You've tried it, you've taken that risk. If it hasn't worked, you're better because of the experience that's come with it.
You've learned something. It's hardened you up for the next time you try. You know, you've got a better idea of what not to do. And I think that I'd personally promote taking risks and failing, because you learn so much from it. And you could be happy to say, I've got 100% success rate of succeeding, but you never take a risk. So the 100% you've got is because you never did anything. You're never going to get anywhere.
A lot of it comes from your frame of mind as well. It's like you said before, it's a vicious cycle. You start to doubt yourself, and you have to believe. And I know it's a lot easier to say if you do believe, if you don't. But if you don't believe, then automatically everything you do try becomes negative, because you got that self-doubt. It's bound to fail. Do you know what I mean? I generally go through life thinking I can walk on water.
It's weird.
You know, it's not arrogance, but I wake up and I think, you know something, believe in what you're doing. You're onto something. Just go for it. And I am my own biggest fan, and there's no arrogance in it.
No. The reason I'm laughing is because I feel the same way. And a lot of the time, if I tell people, I don't think they understand what I'm saying to them. It's weird, because when I was a kid, I was the complete opposite to this. I was shy. I didn't have any self-belief. And now, from the business and everything else, I just feel like, fuck it, I'm going to do it. If I fail, I fail. But I feel like I'm on fire. And you know, sometimes people will hear stuff like that, and they expect that. I'm not talking about it in a financial way. Do you know what I mean? The way that I'm thinking and the way that my finances are with setting up a business are two completely different things. But what gives me the confidence to push forward eventually will be a financial gain. But the thing is, me and you, and I think a lot of people that do well we're money driven in the sense where we need it to better our lifestyles, but we're not chasing money.
No, I'm chasing greatness. I want to be great at whatever it is I'm doing. I want to be the master of it. I want to be the most perfect example of it, and it becomes an obsession. Do you know what I mean? But I think it's like you say, don't be scared to fail, but it's what you do in your failures. Do you know what I mean? Although I believe I walk on water, I'm also very self-critical. So behind closed doors, I'll evaluate things I've done so much, and I'm an overthinker.
We assess everything, every detail. But that's how you get better.
100%.
This actually falls perfectly into a story I wanted to touch on. So, unfortunately, yesterday we were hit with the tragic news of Kobe Bryant and his daughter dying in the helicopter crash. So our condolences to them and everybody affected by it. That was really fucking sad news. Kobe Bryant was great at what he did. And one of the ways you know he's great is because, for me, I like basketball as a sport. I didn't follow it. There was a lot of people like me that didn't follow it. Everybody knew Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, of course,
Right. One of the reasons he was great is because he wasn't accepting failure. I heard a fascinating story, and when I try and inspire and motivate people, I sometimes tell them this story in the barbershop. I heard a story that years ago, when Kobe used to play, the Lakers had I think it was like a tradition of theirs, unless it's an NBA tradition, where at the end of the game, the whole team would go out and eat. One day, I think how I remember the story going was the Lakers have lost. They go back to the changing rooms. they're showering, they're getting changed, they're ready to go out. Kobe's not there. Everybody's looking for Kobe. Somebody says, I'm going to go and find him. He goes round, can't find him in the arena. Everybody, all the fans have left. Stadium's empty. The geezer goes onto the court. Kobe's shooting free throws.
Yeah.
Right? He says to him, Kobe, we're getting ready. We're ready to go. Kobe says to him, you lot carry on. Go without me.
Yeah.
He lost, even though at the time he was still rich, famous, probably great at what he was doing from back then. He was not willing to settle with that loss, to the point where he went back onto the court when everybody left.
Yeah.
You know, that's the difference with what you're saying in somebody that fails, but you do something about it.
Yeah, he's chasing greatness.
Yeah.
He's chasing greatness. And there's a difference between chasing money or a job promotion or job. You are chasing greatness. And if you have that mindset, naturally success will come, I think.
Yeah. Because if Kobe was chasing money, he wouldn't have done that because he's already got money.
You know what I mean? He's not. Yeah.
So at the point where you say, let's say, I don't know, 1 million is the goal. If you hit 1 million, now what are you going to do? Stop? Because you hit 1 million.
That's right. Yeah.
But then your goal's gone. You need something else.
How do you quantify happiness? Do you know what I mean? Millions of £1 million in the bank.
Yeah.
It's going to make me happy.
To an extent.
But once you've hit it, where do you go from there?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it, like you say, it's what makes you happy. And I think for me, it's, or people like, I'm not saying I'm related to Kobe Bryant, but it's chasing that great vision.
So I feel like if you're willing to chase that greatness and be amazing at something, the money's naturally going to come anyway.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
100%.
You don't actually need to worry about money. As long as you're getting by.
And you're good at what you do. Goes noticed.
Yeah. And eventually it may take me a lot more years to financially get to a point where I'm a lot more satisfied. Not to say I'm not satisfied now, but you know, better. But that isn't the goal. That's not what I'm chasing.
Yeah.
And I feel like if we could probably say anything to these kids, it'd be just believe in yourself enough to do it.
Yeah.
So I think we as men living honest and clean lives have an obligation to guide the younger guys coming after us. They may respect us more, some of them, than their own parents, because again they're at stages of their lives where they clash with their parents. I don't know, maybe the parents did them wrong. We are pivotal in some of these young people's upcomings, and I personally take it serious. We don't know what goes on behind closed doors, so we may be the guys that can do something about changing these kids. And even if we're not the only role models, even if we're not the only men of support in that person's life, there's no harm in reaffirming something that they're already being taught. I think that a lot of guys are careless. So a lot of guys our age, maybe a bit younger, a bit older, they're careless because a lot of guys are going to say, it ain't my responsibility.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what we're going to hear, it's not my responsibility to show him the way. I'm about my own business. It's got nothing to do with me. Coincidentally, it ain't mine or your business either. They're not our kids.
No.
When we eventually have kids, they're our responsibility. Technically, if you're going to put it like that, these other kids aren't our responsibility. However, the problem now, why society, I believe, is amiss, is because nobody wants to take responsibility of anything now.
No.
Right? So if it ain't my responsibility and you're not in your responsibility, who's going to pick up the pieces? Because clearly you can't blame the kids, because like you said, if you've ended up in a bit of a bad situation and you've got no one to show you the way, how are you going to learn?
I think it's an insecurity, really. If you're not prepared to, like, you know, at the end of the day, whatever you do in your life has no impact on mine, whether I become successful or unsuccessful based on your success.
Yeah.
why not help everybody try and do a little bit more? Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? And if I'm insecure about where I am and what I'm doing and which way I'm going, it pays to keep people down.
Right.
You know, if you're
Yeah,
confident in yourself and
Yeah,
you're confident in where you're going, bring everyone else up with
yeah.
you. You know,
Yeah.
why shouldn't you guide someone or help someone?
Well, this is the thing. I think that it's a lot of weakness. There's a lot of bitch ass men, I'd say, that see it as every man for himself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you're right. It probably is an insecurity, because what if I help you and then you get better than me?
Yeah, 100%.
Do you know what I mean? People don't want it, do they?
No.
And I think that's why a lot of people and a lot of the youth are divided, because there's not enough helping hands.
No, 100%.
If there was more helping hands, we could bring a lot more people up.
It's a cliche, isn't it? But when they say people don't want to see you succeed, they don't. You know, the people really are not interested in seeing you better yourself. It doesn't, for whatever reason, fit their philosophy. If everyone was to do a little bit more for everybody else, the world would be...
This is the thing. I feel like you've got... If in 20 years' time, the kids are all fucked up, society's in a worse state than it is now, and someone's going to sit and moan about it, that is our age or a bit older, you better shut your fucking mouth, because you've got no right to say anything about it when you haven't done fuck all to try and help the situation.
100%.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, it's a thing of, oh, we'll just leave them to it.
Yeah.
But sooner or later, you may have kids that then get to 12, 14, when they need a role model, a bit of a male figure to guide them, and the pool of people are these kids that you didn't give a fuck about.
Yeah.
And now they're going to misguide your kids.
When I was younger, my Paul used to say to me, when you die, you don't leave any money behind, you don't leave any nice cars, big houses, nothing. The only thing you really leave behind is your name. And if you respect your name, people will respect you. Yeah. And I feel like it's important, for your own sake and for your name, to try and do a little bit for somebody else, so they can say, you know what, that was Harris, that was Ben. He was a good guy. They're not going to turn around and say, that was Ben, he had a nice barber shop. They might mention it, but they're going to say, you know what, that Ben was a good geezer.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a lasting memory if you didn't help them.
Yeah, 100%. That's important.
Is that something that you kind of, that stuck with you and maybe affected the way that you see things now?
Yeah, I think so. I think it sunk in really when I was at his funeral, and I looked around and the church is full of people you've never even seen before. But you know he's done something to leave an impact on their life, small or big, for them to pay their respects in that way. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
because I have heard people say, live a life where basically there's going to be a lot of people that, how many people, the way you're living, how many people will turn up to your funeral?
Yeah, 100%.
Do you know what I mean?
100%.
And it's one of them things where people are only really going to turn up if you have had an impact on them. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's a God bless him and they keep moving.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like it's impact, and like with Kobe Bryant, when they say legends never die, it's because they had an impact.
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
that's right.
There's going to be a lot of other basketball players, NBA players, that have died or that will die, and people aren't, as unfortunate as it is, people aren't going to know them.
No.
Or they're not going to care.
They're not going to care.
You know,
you've probably been the same. You go through life encountering so many people, but you can stick in your mind a few that have actually said something or done something or shown something that made you feel a little bit more about them than you did about others. And I think that's that impact that someone may leave on you.
Yeah, but it's a process to get there. It can't be, I'm gonna walk past a homeless man and hand him a $5 one day and everyone's gonna cheer for me forever. It's not that, man.
It's not that.
You've got to really give a shit.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't.
But truly give a shit as well. Not give a shit for the sake of showing that you give a shit.
Yeah.
What are you actually doing behind my back that's in my best interest? Do you know what I mean? And you find people do that, and it comes to light later on. But a lot of people will be friends to your face, and then when they leave, they say, "Oh, he's a dickhead. He was this, he was that, whatever." Yeah. Behind your back, when they're doing something for your interest, is a selfless person.
But I think where it means more is what advice, what kind of the way you're talking to people is where it matters. I find that in the barbershop when I'm talking to these young kids, a lot of the time I'm paying attention because I actually care. I'm not just saying the right things just so I can say the right things. Do you know what I mean? And you will never be able to walk away feeling like I bullshitted you because I haven't. Do you know what I mean? I honestly give a shit.
I think a problem most people have when they're communicating or having a conversation is they're talking to get their point across.
Yeah.
Talk to listen.
Right.
Yeah. And that is the difference it can make to someone. If you're talking and actually listening to what they're saying, naturally what you put out is relevant to them.
Yeah.
If we're having a conversation and I'm not listening to you, but I'm just thinking about my next point, it's only so long you're going to think, he's not really paying attention, he's not really, you know.
But again, a lot of people are just so focused on doing their thing, they're not about to watch what this young guy who's lost is got going on. The other problem we've got is like when you see some of these young boys, they might end up in a gang, and then the gangs have got like I take it you watch Top Boy. Yeah. So in Top Boy in the last series, it was showing how the young kid who wanted to provide for his mother got into the gang, and then the guys at the top of the gang were appointing guys below them to go and take this kid and teach him how to do gang stuff, teach him how to sell drugs, teach him how to rob. They're doing the right things as a male role model to guide them, but they're just doing the wrong things. But we're being outworked by these drug dealers and these gangs. Why do they give a shit about the kids and we don't? Do you know what I mean?
I suppose it's the offer of easiness, isn't it? It's the offer of something easy, quick, and that's what everyone wants. They want the quickest and easiest way to the top, and they don't care really how they get there. But the bigger picture is it's never gonna.
Yeah, but the sad thing is you've got these wrong type of guys that are guiding these kids in the wrong type of ways. Meanwhile, there's a lot of us doing the right type of things, and nobody's stepping up. You know.
How'd you fix it?
Yeah, you've got to step up.
It's hard though, isn't it? It's hard because it's about, I suppose, not discoverability, but what makes us important for anyone to listen and say, you know what, take a bit of attention to what he's saying.
Yeah.
Whereas someone that's dangling a carrot in front of your face, you know, rather than just sitting here and saying, well, I think this is good for you, I'm saying this is good for you, but here's what you can have.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, that attraction is so much different and that appeal is so much more there.
So I think there's probably an element of it's kind of easier to guide them when you can show them what you've created.
That's right. Do
you know what I mean? I can say, look, guys, if you stay on this path, I've got something to show for it. You can have something to show for it. Maybe if I didn't have anything to show for it, it's kind of hard for me to preach it.
Kind of, yeah.
But I think so. Then maybe this is what people need to get on their A game about as well. You know, grind and succeed so you can help people along the way.
Yeah, you have to be an example.
Yeah.
By more than what you're saying, don't you? You have to be able to say, oh, I can relate to them and I can actually see what they've done. Not to say we're the most successful people in the world, but we're happy with what we're doing.
Yeah.
You can show someone that you can do that, because I was in a similar position to you. I had little guidance or whatever.
Yeah.
You can achieve something, but you've got to be able to train that mind to work through it and prepare to do the long, hard years, hours, months, whatever it is to get there. It's not easy.
Do you feel like a lot of people don't want to step up like we want to step up because they think if I fuck up, they're watching?
Yeah, 100%. It's easy not to take risk, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it's easy to do, I don't want to say the ordinary, but it's easy to do the ordinary, carefree, not worry about it.
No accountability.
Yeah. You know, not easy. You run your own business. It's 24/7. It's not an easy thing.
Yeah. But it serves the greater purpose of what are you here for? Am I here to just open a barbershop and cut hair? No.
Yeah.
But some people are.
Yeah.
They just want to do that thing and call it a day.
Yeah. Can you help those people?
You can't. I think there's only so much you can push or preach to somebody, but the way I see it is respect yourself enough to try and make something.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. You've got to respect yourself.
Why live average?
Some people are content with it. Do you know what I mean? Some people are content with it, and I don't know. I don't know if it's a lack of belief, it's a lack of vision, it's a lack of want. There are people out there that are just happy to do what they want to do in a standard way, so it's hard to...
I think it's hard for us to relate because we're so different.
Probably, yeah. I think so. And I think that's important to remember. I've got very frustrated in many occasions trying to relate to things that I'm thinking, it's pointless trying to understand that mindset. It's not my mindset, just move on from it, and it's a frustration.
What advice would you give young guys who may be in the wrong crowds and how they can succeed?
What advice would I give them? I suppose it'd be, think of the bigger picture. A lot of people say, oh, you only live once and this and that, and live for today. I don't believe in that. I think 9 times out of 10, we're probably lucky enough to wake up the next morning and you're at that new day. Yeah. But if you've given everything already, where are you going? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think you've got to be able to step back and say, do you know something? There is a bigger picture. Just keep working, moving forward. Forget what's here now and just progress yourself forward.
I think the other thing is that when you're 15, 18, 20, it's kind of hard to envision being 30, isn't it?
100%.
And I think a lot of these kids that are going to raves and doing all the whatever they do there, and the kids at school, and they can't imagine being our age. So they try and squeeze all the fucking juice they can out of life.
Yeah.
But then, what lasting effect does that have on you as you get older? Because you get to 30 and now you're all kinds of fucked up.
Yeah.
And you've got nothing.
It's crazy though, isn't it? Because at that age, 15, 16, 17, you're not the mature person you are at 30.
Yeah.
Nor am I the mature person now that I will be at 50.
Yeah.
But those years have a massive impact on your life. And if you don't very quickly pull your socks up and see which way you're going, by the time you get to 30, like you say, the juice is all gone out of life and you're so fucking lost.
And far from where you could have been.
It's hard to come back from that.
Yeah, I think that this is why I don't expect kids to make the right decisions all the time. But what I personally encourage is don't make the obvious wrong decisions.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
100%.
And it's little things. I say it's little things. They're not little things, but they're obvious things. I tell these boys, when you go out and you meet a girl, strap up, play safe, right? How many guys have I come across in the barber shop that ended up accidentally having a kid from a young age, and now everything's a chore, they haven't lived a life, they grow up and they're unhappy, they're trapped in a situation where they've got a kid and they've got a missus and they can't leave, so then everything they do is out of frustration.
Yeah.
All because you didn't play safe when you should have played safe.
The problem is we're brought up to be young and carefree, aren't we?
Yeah.
The problem is you can't be carefree. Do you know what I mean? And I think going full circle, all of a sudden being the man in my house at 11, 12, 13 years old, whatever it is, you had a sense of responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think if you haven't got that sense of responsibility, you need to find it quick before it slaps you in the face.
But the reality is, for example, playing safe, strapping up, it's not rocket science. We know it from a young age. Just fucking do it. And people are like, oh yeah, but it feels better when it's not that way. Or I'll worry about that when we get to it. But it's like, these are things that you may be able to avoid, but if you don't, they're going to impact the rest of your life completely. The other thing, which is an obvious one, which I always say to people is, kids, is keep away from the drugs, because even if you don't make all the right decisions, keeping away from the drugs is a right decision.
100%.
It's basic, simple stuff. Drugs poison your brain. You don't need it. It's not going to do you any favors. There's not one good thing that comes out of taking any kind of drug. So if you're not going to make all the right decisions, just don't fucking make the wrong ones.
Yeah, I suppose it's knowing what the right and wrong ones are as well, isn't it? And that's a lot to do with your environment and the people you're at. It's well and good telling a 15-year-old kid don't take drugs, but if they've watched their parents take drugs all their life, it's very normal.
But I think as much as I agree with it, you also see the after effects of them taking drugs.
Yeah.
If you were in a kind of environment where every single person you see is on drugs, you're going to think differently. But if your parents are on drugs, but the guy down the road, who has a good job and a nice house and everything, isn't on drugs, then you see the difference that the drugs do.
But I suppose you've got to have the power of mind to know the difference, isn't it? And I suppose it all comes back to what we're saying, guidance. Who's going to put their arm around that kid and say, do you know something? That ain't the way to be.
Yeah.
This is the way to be.
Yeah.
And not too many people are prepared to take that responsibility for them, are they? So it's easy just to carry on in that bad path. No guidance, no role model, no way forward to say, well, fuck it, it's just the normal.
Yeah. It's a tough one, but I just think that definitely as long as we can keep pushing the messages we want to get across, hopefully it's going to stick in somebody's head.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you know what I mean?
That's what I want to do. That's why I want to be able to give something back. As I say, I was young, had mentors, and I had one particular mentor that stuck in my mind because he was trying to be, someone that would give you a different option, a different way forward. What it is I'm going to do yet, I don't know, but I want it to be something that's giving back to people that haven't got that opportunity to, have a guidance, have a road. Yeah,
because even if it may be one conversation that may change somebody's life and you never see him again, but it'll stick.
100%.
But
100%.
if you don't care to have that conversation in the first place, they'll miss it.
I sit here and sound like I'm very accomplished and far from it, but
I know.
I want people to move on from me, whether they work as part of the team or whether they've met me and said, do you know something, he did that or he showed me that or it left an impact. I'd like to be able to leave that little bit of impact, not being arrogant, but just to say my advice, in my humble opinion, help someone do something a bit better, and if it's better than for it, I feel rewarded for it.
And I think we need more of these kind of people about that care enough to do that, and eventually, hopefully, we're not seeing things as down the wrong path that they look like they're heading towards. All right, moving on. So I was asked by a friend of ours to touch on something which feels like it's old news now, because it was earlier this month. But as you lot probably know, you see the memes all the time that January lasts forever, and it fucking does when you think about it. So there was a thing in the news about the British girl who apparently was raped in Cyprus. The reason why I bring it up, and it's relevant to me and Harris and our friend that mentioned it to me, was because we're all from Cyprus. Our nationality is Greek Cypriot. So as I have a platform, it would probably be, right for me to kind of jump in and give my 2 cents about it. So for those that don't know, you must have known, there's a British girl, 18 or whatever she was, went to Cyprus in the summer, went to Ayia Napa, apparently got raped by a group of Israeli boys. They said that she wasn't given a lawyer. The Cypriot authorities said that she was lying. They wanted to put her in prison. She managed to come back. Her mom's all over the news and the radio saying that she's innocent. Then people were saying, boycott Cyprus. Now, this is where, we start to feel a bit angry by it. We obviously no way condone any sexual abuse. However, the sexual abuse has to be real. Mm-hmm. If it's not real, then it's just as serious as a problem for people to lie and say that it did happen when it didn't happen. So people are saying boycott Cyprus because they want to put this girl in prison. Had she lied and it wasn't rape, these boys' lives are being ruined.
Yeah. That's a hard stigma to shift.
Yeah. The problem is, rape is a very sensitive case. And if you've got people, which a lot of girls do, they lie about it, then if you do hear of someone getting raped, you may not believe it because loads of people are lying. Yeah. When it's a very, very serious case that shouldn't be joked about. So basically, we've seen the videos. There's videos that have come out, and if there was any sexual predators in this scenario, it was the girl, because that was a fucking orgy. She was going to work in them videos.
What I know is, I've always found, growing up, going to Cyprus, it's a safe place. Generally speaking, I don't think trouble finds its way to you. You've got to go out and find trouble. Without knowing the ins and outs of the case, I think from what I heard, there was like accusations, then withdrawals of the accusations, then half-told stories of it. And I think it's natural for any legal system to... They've got to come to the bottom of it, haven't they?
Yeah.
You know, you are going to be in prison. You are going to be taken to court. And if you're not convicted, you'll be let free. And if you are convicted, then wherever you go in the world, you're going to go to prison for it.
Yeah.
As I say, for me, Cyprus is a fair country. It's a country, I think, that's very safe compared to a lot of Europe. And I don't think trouble's going to find you there unless you find it.
But I think there was a valuable experience that we've learned from this is if you're in situations where things get a bit erotic and it's with a stranger, you might want a bit of video proof because that might be the only way it fucking saves you.
Saving grace, yeah.
Right, so moving on from there, just a little bit before we wrap up, and for a lot of us, me included, and the younger guys that might be listening, you're in a relationship, you're happy, you're settled down, you're going to get married this year. Mm-hmm. What's the hardest thing about being in a relationship when you're planning to stick it out for the long run?
The hardest thing? You know something? I don't find it hard. I feel like I found someone that matches my drive.
Right.
So because we're both on that same wavelength, there's never going to be that, you can't do this, you can't do that, because you both get it. I think we've got a good basis of communication. And I suppose the hard thing is always communicating. You've always got to communicate, good, bad or whatever, communicate, talk through your problems and work it through. But I'm not an overly romantic person. When they say you know, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay.
And I think if it happens,
right,
it's easy to love someone like that.
So, but it would be a case of don't just settle for the
don't
sake
just
of
settle.
settling.
No, 100%.
Because you wouldn't get, if you were just willing to settle, you wouldn't get that.
No, 100% you wouldn't. I think a lot of people just settle because they think it's the normal thing to do. I've not settled, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm very, very happy.
Good.
And I found someone that is, well, as I say, perfect for me.
Compliments you.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So that would be that's definitely something to take away, is if you just settle, and this is probably something that I'm going to discuss on other episodes as well, but there's a lot of people in the wrong relationships, but I'm going to probably get into that soon on. To wrap up, if you could do anything for a job that isn't what you do now, what would it be?
Anything for a job that I don't do now? That's a hard one. Man, you know what? I don't know. I love what I do.
Yeah.
And I can't see past that at the moment, you know.
There's nothing that you'd say, oh, do you know what? That might have been fun.
I'd probably have enjoyed acting, I think.
Really?
Yeah, I probably would have enjoyed acting. I enjoyed drama at school.
Okay.
And yeah, I suppose that, but other than that,
yeah.
I feel like I am where I need to be.
Okay, we'll stick with that. This might scramble your head, but try and give me the fastest answer you can give me.
Yeah.
If you were a pro fighter, what would your walkout music be?
Oh, Roy Jones Jr. Can't Be Touched.
Okay, all right.
I know this one.
Okay, you thought about it.
I know this one. Yeah. 100%.
That's the kind of thing you listen to in the car, and you think, right, this is
that'll get you going.
All right. So I just want to thank you for coming on because I know you're a busy guy.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
No, it's been a pleasure. Anybody that wants to reach you for whatever reason, they might be interested in the business, the company, or whatever it is, or they just want a bit of advice or whatever, the socials will be here somewhere. If anybody is a worthy guest, you've got something interesting or important to bring to the table, please message me and we can discuss. Go subscribe to the YouTube and like the videos. Sharing them on the socials helps. Listen, what we discussed is very important to me, and it's very important to Harris. For anybody that, we joke around about certain things, but it is a message that we do feel strongly about. And if anybody wants some kind of advice or guidance or just a little bit of something, try and find somebody to speak to. If you're not in the local area, you know, I'd say you can shoot me a message on the socials. That's not an issue. If you are in the local area, Alpha Male Barbers doors are always open. Even if you don't want to trim, man, just come through. If we can help somebody, we want to help. Apart from that, thanks for having us on your screens. My name is Nicolaou, Harris Kyriacou in the chair with the barber. Stay tuned and you'll see me soon. Yeah.